When most people think of flying reptiles from the age of dinosaurs, one image usually comes to mind. A long crest slicing through the sky, wings stretched wide like sails, gliding effortlessly above the waves. That is the Pteranodon, one of the most famous creatures of the Late Cretaceous. But what do we really know about this animal? And how much of what we imagine is actually true? The story begins not with a dinosaur bone, but with a strange fossil found in the chalk beds of Kansas in the 19th century. At that time, Kansas was no dry prairie but part of a shallow inland sea known as the Western Interior Seaway. This enormous body of water divided North America in two, stretching from the Arctic Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico. Its depths were filled with mosasaurs, giant fish, and sharks, while its skies were patrolled by flying reptiles. When paleontologists dug into those chalk beds, they uncovered fossilized wings unlike anything they had ever seen. These wings belonged to the creature we now call Pteranodon. The name means toothless wing. That detail is important because for years there was confusion. Earlier pterosaur discoveries showed rows of teeth, leading some scientists to assume that all flying reptiles had them. But Pteranodon was different. Its beak was long, sharp, and completely toothless, resembling a dagger-shaped bird beak. At first, this was so strange that many paleontologists didn't believe it. They thought the fossils were incomplete, missing the teeth that must have been there. Only later did they accept the truth. Pteranodon had evolved a beak specialized for catching fish, not for chewing. Its wingspan was equally shocking. Some individuals stretched over 6 meters from tip to tip, making them among the largest flying animals ever known at the time of their discovery. To put that in perspective, that's wider than many small airplanes. And yet, despite this enormous size, Pteranodon was lightweight, built for soaring. Its bones were hollow, its body streamlined, and its wings formed not by feathers but by membranes of skin stretched along a long fourth finger. But size and wings were only part of the story. Perhaps the most striking feature of Pteranodon was its crest. Fossils show that males had enormous, backward-sweeping crests, while females had smaller, more modest ones. This suggests sexual dimorphism, differences between males and females not just in size but in appearance. What was the crest for? The debate still rages. Some scientists argue it acted like a rudder in flight, helping to stabilize or steer. Others believe it was a display feature, used to attract mates or intimidate rivals. The truth may be a mix of both. What's certain is that no modern bird has anything quite like it. Life for Pteranodon was centered around the sea. Its beak and fossils found in marine deposits make it clear that it was a fish eater. Picture it gliding above the waves of the Western Interior Seaway, scanning the surface for movement. When it spotted a school of fish, it may have swooped low, dipping its beak to snatch one from the water. Unlike modern seabirds such as gannets, Pteranodon probably didn't dive headfirst. It wasn't built for that kind of impact. Instead, it likely skimmed or snatched, using precision rather than brute force. But even above the sea, danger was never far. Sharks and mosasaurs patrolled the waters, waiting for anything that ventured too close. A miscalculated dive could turn a hunter into prey. Fossils of Pteranodon have been found with bite marks, evidence that they sometimes became meals themselves. Life in the Cretaceous was never safe, not even for masters of the sky. Still, Pteranodon thrived. Hundreds of fossils have been found across the central United States, especially in Kansas, Nebraska, and Wyoming. This abundance suggests they lived in large colonies, much like modern seabirds. Imagine towering cliffs at the edge of the Western Interior Seaway, packed with nests, the air filled with the beating of wings and the cries of thousands of pterosaurs. Males with enormous crests strutted and displayed, while females guarded nests of eggs. Hatchlings, tiny compared to their parents, scrambled across the rocks. It must have been a scene both noisy and spectacular. What's fascinating is how much of their life we can reconstruct from bones alone. For example, differences in size between males and females suggest that females were smaller, perhaps to reduce the energy cost of reproduction. This mirrors patterns seen in many modern birds. The fact that so many fossils are found in marine sediments tells us they spent much of their lives over the sea. Even the delicate structure of their wings gives clues about their flight. Long and narrow, perfect for soaring on ocean winds for hours without flapping. And yet, for all we know, there is still so much mystery. How exactly did they take off? With such enormous wings, running launches from cliffs or strong winds may have been essential. Recent studies suggest they may have used a quadrupedal launch, pushing off with both arms and legs at once, vaulting into the air like a powerful leapfrog. Once airborne, they were unrivaled gliders, able to travel vast distances with minimal effort. We also wonder how they lived socially. Did males fight with their crests, clashing like rams? Did they use color, with crests painted in bright hues we can no longer see in the fossils? Were their colonies orderly, or chaotic masses like modern seabird rookeries? Fossils give us fragments, but imagination must fill in the rest. What we do know is that Pteranodon dominated the skies of North America for millions of years. From about 70 million to 85 million years ago, they soared above the seaway, witnessing an ocean filled with giants. Below them swam Mosasaurus, enormous reptiles longer than a bus, and schools of giant fish like Xiphactinus, some over 4 meters long. To live in this world was to balance constantly between hunter and hunted. It is easy to romanticize their mastery of the skies, but it was a harsh existence. Winds could turn deadly. Storms could drive whole colonies into the sea. Predators lurked everywhere. And yet, Pteranodon endured, its toothless beak and soaring wings making it one of the most successful pterosaurs of the Late Cretaceous. Subscribe if you liked the video. By the Late Cretaceous, the western interior seaway stretched like a vast inland ocean, and Pteranodon had become one of its most iconic rulers of the air. Fossils uncovered from Kansas chalk beds give us glimpses of their world, but the fossils alone cannot capture the full drama of their lives. To imagine it, we have to combine what the bones tell us with the behavior of modern animals. One of the most striking questions is how Pteranodon interacted with its environment. With wingspans reaching 6 or even 7 meters, these creatures were enormous, yet their hollow bones made them surprisingly light. Scientists estimate that the largest males may have weighed around 30 kilograms, lighter than a modern swan, but far more intimidating in size. Such proportions made them excellent gliders, able to ride ocean winds for hours. Like modern albatrosses, they may have spent most of their lives far from shore, returning to land only to breed. The crest remains one of their great mysteries. The fossils show clear differences between males and females. Males bore long, backward-sweeping crests that could reach well over a meter, while females had smaller, shorter crests. This difference suggests the crests were not purely aerodynamic. If stability in flight had been the only purpose, both sexes should have had similar crests. Instead, the dramatic difference points to display and mating. In other words, the crest was probably a billboard for attraction. In a crowded colony filled with shrieking wings, males with the largest and most extravagant crests may have stood out, gaining the attention of females. But crests may have had multiple functions. Some researchers propose they worked like rudders, fine-tuning balance in the air. Others think they may have been brightly colored, used like the feathers of a peacock. Since skin and color rarely fossilize, we cannot know for sure, but it's easy to imagine colonies filled with males flashing vibrant crests in the sunlight, each one trying to prove he was the best choice. Their reproduction, too, is pieced together through comparison. Pterosaurs laid eggs with leathery shells, more like modern reptiles than birds. These eggs were vulnerable to predators and the environment, which suggests they were buried in sand or soil for protection. Hatchlings, known from related species, were probably precocial, meaning they could walk or even fly soon after hatching. If true for Pteranodon, then newborns may have taken to the skies quickly, gliding over the waves within days of breaking free from their eggs. Imagine cliffs lined with nests, young pterosaurs leaping into the wind, their survival depending on immediate flight. But life in the western interior seaway was anything but safe. Beneath the waves lurked Mosasaurus, a predator more than 15 meters long with jaws like a crocodile. There were also sharks like Cretoxorina, nicknamed the Ginsu shark for its slicing teeth, and giant predatory fish such as Xiphactinus. Any pteranodon that mistimed its dive or skimmed too close to the surface risked being snatched from below. Even their mastery of the air could not guarantee safety when the ocean itself was filled with monsters. Fossil evidence supports this harsh reality. Some pteranodon bones show bite marks, while others are found mixed with the remains of sea predators. These fragments remind us that they were part of the food chain, not above it. The skies gave them freedom, but the sea could still drag them down. The way Pteranodon hunted also reveals much about its lifestyle. Unlike modern seabirds that dive headfirst into the water, its skeleton shows it was not built for such impact. Its bones were too fragile, its wings too long. Instead, it likely skimmed the surface, dipping its beak into schools of fish and snatching prey with speed and precision. Think of a pelican or skimmerbird, but with the added advantage of immense wings that allowed it to cover hundreds of kilometers without tiring. This strategy was efficient but dangerous. Skimming close to the water's surface left them exposed to predators below. Survival required skill, timing, and luck. Despite the dangers, Pteranodon flourished. The sheer number of fossils suggests large populations, perhaps numbering in the tens of thousands. Colonies may have stretched for kilometers along ancient coastlines, filling the air with a constant storm of wings. The noise must have been overwhelming. Screeches, flapping, and the splash of thousands of beaks hitting the water at once. Social dynamics within these colonies remain mysterious. Did males fight over nesting sites, using their crests like weapons? Did they form harems or pair bonds? Without direct evidence, we can only guess, but competition must have been intense. With so many individuals packed together, conflicts over food, mates, and territory would have been inevitable. Their anatomy also raises questions about how they lived day to day. The elongated beak, toothless but sharp, was perfect for gripping slippery fish. Their eyes were positioned to give them good binocular vision, essential for judging distances when swooping at prey. Their long wings and strong shoulders show they were powerful flyers, but their legs were weak. On land, they were likely clumsy, hobbling on all fours. This made nesting season dangerous. When grounded, they were vulnerable to predators. Recent studies suggest that Pteranodon launched into the air using all four limbs. Instead of running along the ground and flapping like a bird, they vaulted upward, pushing off with their wings and legs at once. This quadrupedal launch gave them explosive power, letting them take off quickly even from flat ground. It also solved the problem of their enormous wingspan. Rather than needing a cliff or strong wind, they could leap into the air and catch the breeze almost immediately. This unique launch method shows just how different pterosaurs were from birds. Though both groups mastered flight, they took entirely separate evolutionary paths. Birds rely on feathers and lightweight skeletons. Pterosaurs relied on membranous wings supported by elongated fingers. The fact that both succeeded for millions of years proves that there is more than one way to conquer the skies. But as successful as they were, Pteranodon did not last forever. By the end of the Cretaceous, around 66 million years ago, the same asteroid impact that wiped out the dinosaurs also destroyed the pterosaurs. When dust and ash blocked the sun, food chains collapsed. Without fish and smaller prey, Pteranodon starved. Their colonies vanished, their wings fell silent, and their crests disappeared into the chalk beds forever. And yet, the fossils they left behind continue to tell their story. From the chalk cliffs of Kansas to museum halls around the world, Pteranodon remains a symbol of prehistoric skies. Its legacy is not just in its size or shape, but in what it represents. The power of evolution to fill every niche, even the boundless air above the sea. For all that we have uncovered about Pteranodon, the truth is that mystery still surrounds this giant of the skies. Fossils give us shapes, bones, and outlines, but they cannot tell us everything. What color were their wings? Did their crests blaze with bright patterns to catch the eye of a mate? Did they have soft calls like seabirds or harsh cries that echoed over the waves? In many ways, the most vivid parts of their lives remain hidden, leaving us to imagine. We do know that Pteranodon was one of the most successful pterosaurs of its age. For nearly 15 million years, it dominated the air above the western interior seaway, sharing the skies with other flying reptiles but standing out as the most abundant. Its success came not from being the fiercest predator, but from being perfectly adapted to its environment. Long wings let it soar for hours, hollow bones kept it light, and its beak was a weapon designed for fishing. In the balance of predator and prey, Pteranodon thrived. Still, survival was always a struggle. Each flight over the sea carried risks. Winds could shift suddenly, storms could blow entire colonies into the ocean, and predators lurked beneath the surface. Sharks and mosasaurs were a constant danger, waiting for mistakes. On land, awkward movements left them vulnerable to attacks from other creatures. Their life was one of constant vigilance, master of the skies, but always threatened from the world below. Even in reproduction, life was precarious. Colonies crowded cliffs and beaches, vulnerable to flooding or predators. Eggs, with their leathery shells, had to be buried or hidden, but no nest was truly safe. Hatchlings may have been able to fly quickly, but until then they were small, fragile, and exposed. Entire generations could be wiped out in a single storm or raid, and yet they endured. Year after year, season after season, the skies filled again with beating wings. What makes Pteranodon so fascinating is how much of it pushes the limits of flight itself. A wingspan of 6 meters is extraordinary even by modern standards. Only a few birds, like the wandering albatross, come close. And yet, unlike birds, Pteranodon relied on a membrane stretched across a giant finger, a completely different structure. Its very existence shows how evolution found multiple solutions to the same problem: how to fly. Birds and bats each took one path, while pterosaurs took another, and for millions of years, theirs was the most successful of all. But perhaps the greatest mystery is not how Pteranodon lived, but how it looked in life. Fossils capture bones, but not colors, not sounds, not behavior. Was its crest patterned with bright reds and yellows, glowing in the sun to attract mates? Did males clash crests in noisy battles on cliff edges? Did colonies stretch for kilometers, a sea of wings rising and falling with the wind? The answers are lost to time. What remains is the silence of stone, leaving us to dream of skies filled with creatures unlike anything alive today. The end of Pteranodon came suddenly, with the asteroid impact 66 million years ago. The skies darkened, oceans collapsed, and food chains broke apart. Fish populations plummeted, and without fish, the rulers of the air had nothing to eat. Within a short geological moment, the colonies of Kansas and Nebraska were gone. The crests, the wings, the cries above the seaway, all vanished. Only fossils in chalk beds remained. And yet, extinction does not erase legacy. In museums across the world, Pteranodon hangs from ceilings, wings stretched as if forever gliding. Its fossils remind us of a time when the skies belonged not to birds, but to reptiles. Its story reminds us that even the most dominant can fall when the world changes. And it invites us to imagine, what would it be like to look up and see one soaring overhead, its crest slicing the air, its wings casting shadows across the waves? So, is this all we know about Pteranodon? The answer is both yes and no. We know its bones, its wingspan, its crest, its beak, and its role as a fisherman of the Cretaceous seas. We know it was abundant, successful, and perfectly adapted to its world. But what we don't know, the colors, the sounds, the behaviors, leaves just enough mystery to keep it alive in our imaginations. And maybe that is the true power of Pteranodon. It is not just a fossil, not just a skeleton. It is a symbol of an ancient sky, a reminder that life once found ways to fill the air with giants. It is proof that the world has always been stranger, more dangerous, and more beautiful than we can fully imagine. The chalk beds of Kansas may have buried the bodies of Pteranodon, but in uncovering them we have given flight back to their story. Every fossil tells us something, but every missing detail challenges us to wonder, to ask questions, and to look at the sky with curiosity. Because once, long ago, the sky itself belonged to creatures that we are only beginning to understand. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video.